All right. Jeremy Bettle, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, good mate. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thank you so much for coming on here. It really means a lot. The power of connection, Tim getting me in touch with you, and yeah, we're doing this now over Zoom, so very grateful.
Yeah, no worries, mate. No worries. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, mate. So just if you wouldn't mind, just for the listeners out there, just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. What do people want to know about me? I moved over to the States from the UK in
Yeah.
2003. Did grad school over here at Middle Tennessee State, where I did my master's and PhD in human performance.
Mm,
Um, I've had a pretty varied background. I've worked in pro sport for the last 15 years. So
mm,
I started off with USA Rugby. Um, then went to the US college level. So I worked at UC Santa Barbara for about 4 years as the head strength coach.
yeah.
From there, I went to the NBA, worked for the Brooklyn Nets for about 4.5 years as the head strength conditioning coach. Then got an opportunity to switch sports. Went to the NHL, worked
Mm.
in hockey, ice hockey for the Australian listeners and the UK listeners. Um, so yeah, worked for the Toronto Maple Leafs as the performance
Mm.
director for another 4.5 years. Um, then headed out to California to work for the Anaheim Ducks, was the performance director there. And switched sports again, went to the MLS and worked in soccer for a year with NYCFC. We were fortunate enough to win the championship last year.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the career in sport, and I've just taken the calculated risk to jump out of sport now.
Yeah, yeah.
So starting to found a company and do some executive coaching and mentoring on the side as well.
That's amazing, Jeremy. That's a lot of things happening, and you look fairly young still, mate. So that's impressive. I just want to say, obviously, you're from England, Leicester in
Yep,
particular, isn't that right?
that's right. Yeah, that's
And
right.
how does this opportunity of coming over to the States and getting into ice hockey and into these sports that we never really brought up with in the UK in particular, like,
Yeah.
was that overwhelming from you moving and going, shit, I'm in a different area of I don't know anything about these sports?
Yeah. Yes is the simple answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you grow up in Leicester, and I'd actually only planned on being here for a year to do my master's. And one thing leads to another, and you just
Mm,
sort of get on this. I don't know. You jump in a river, and it just takes you in the current, doesn't it? And
100%.
so yeah, one thing gradually led to another, and I spent a long time, just sort of getting to know these sports. The last time I knew anything about the sport I worked in was USA Rugby. So
Oh
um,
yeah.
yes, that was a long time ago. So yeah, I think look, once you go through and you start learning more and more about the human body, and
Mm,
it's sort of the benefit of the field that we work in human performance is that your specialty is the human body, right?
mm,
It's not ice hockey, it's not football, it's not rugby,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
one thing or another. So once you have a grasp of the predominant biomechanics of the sport, the energy systems they use, you can train anybody. You just
yeah.
got to know how to assess the body, see what they need, and what are you preparing them for.
Yeah, that's definitely right. And it's interesting to say that. So I was speaking to well-regarded Tim Gavitt the other day, and we were talking about recovery. And obviously, in the NHL, in basketball and stuff, the seasons go what 80 plus games a season.
Yeah. So 82 regular season, and then you go 7 round playoff series,
Mm,
all the way through first round to the finals. So you probably like for with a good team, you're probably averaging about 100 games a year.
that's crazy. Just to think the load on the body, and obviously
Hmm.
you're traveling a lot with that.
Yeah.
So, in your field of work, how do you, from suppose you can be educated, you can have all the textbooks in your hands to say I've learned it all,
Hmm.
but until you're physically in the realm of the work, how do you go about,
Yeah.
managing these players, the workload, the recovery, the travel, the emotional, the physical, and the mental parts that come with it? How do you get into that and
Hmm.
go, oh, all right, this player needs this and this player needs that? Do you have to get to know the player on a deeper level as such, or?
Yeah, of course. I mean that's the case for whatever your schedule is. It starts with a grounding in who the player is and how you coach them.
Mm,
I think once you reach a certain level of expertise and technical knowledge,
mm,
you pass that sort of arc in your career, and then you've got to start applying that knowledge, and that's where generally we're limited.
mm,
Um, and your ability to apply your knowledge depends on how much the player trusts you,
yeah.
and depends on how much they think you care about them and their interests. And so that's such a huge part of being a practitioner in professional sport, is building relationships.
Yes.
And so you build from a grounding in that relationship, and then you start you start with looking at what the season is going to look like. Then you realize there's going to be no good time to lift,
Mm,
or do any conditioning. And so you plan, when's it going to hurt them the least?
yeah.
And what you'll find is that if you keep doing it, you come out of your off season and into your preseason, and you keep going, then it doesn't hurt them. It actually adds to them, especially late in the year. They
Yeah.
just become more robust, more resilient, um, and the body is just conditioned to doing it. And at the end of the day, the body will adapt to whatever you put in front of it, right? So long as you don't do anything too crazy, and try and
Mm,
get them there too quick, you progress them along, and they deal with it. And,
that's
and then
awesome.
as you start looking at travel and all the stuff that we do here in the US, you're flying thousands of miles, you're playing one
Mm,
night and then playing the next night, right, in a completely different city. So it really becomes a game of recovery,
mm,
right? So you keep them going, you keep them within the pillars of recovery, and sleep and nutrition being
mm,
primary. So you essentially can't feed your high minute guys enough during the season. You keep them going with high quality nutrients. Your medical staff and your strength conditioning staff are working overtime in terms of, just getting the body physically recovered from one game and into the next. And you work with their nutrition and their therapy to really try and almost pre-cover from the game.
yeah.
You try and offset the damage that they're going to get during the game, or the depletion of resources, by fueling them correctly before the game and during, and then after the game. And that's sort of how you keep them going. And then you try and optimize for sleep where you can.
Yeah. Wow.
When it's at home, you optimize the schedule around their sleep and recovery. And when you're on the road, maybe you stay over instead of taking a red-eye flight back, or
Mm,
you sort of work within the constructs that you're given based on the
yeah.
schedule.
With yourself, like learning all of this, obviously coming into this from the UK over to the States, it would have taken you a bit of time to probably learn these little concepts, not actually like the exercise and the recovery, but just like, okay, we got a game coming up this day, travels this long. Was there any pivotal moment as an individual, like when you got over to go, oh, the penny drop moment, or like the I'm really in this now, or anything like that for yourself personally?
Yeah, I think that first time you get presented with like the NBA schedule,
Yeah.
and you think about preparing these high performance athletes, and you sort of think it's going to be the perfect environment to work in.
Mm,
And then the first time you see that schedule, you look at it, and you suddenly realize that nothing's going to be optimum from here moving
yeah.
forward,
Yeah.
right? And so you've got things like the CBA, which only allows the players to be in the building for 3 to 4 hours a day.
Oh wow.
And the coach is going to want some of that. So it's not like you can have an hour lift and some conditioning and some
Mm,
recovery and teaching and all this stuff. So yeah, I think that you think you're really well prepared, and
yeah.
then you walk through the door and you just realize you're not even close.
Yeah.
So it's a case of bringing plenty of humility into it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and when you don't, you learn it very quick,
Mm,
because you got a lot of good practitioners surrounding you. And yeah, I think that probably that first training camp is probably the most daunting piece of
yeah.
what you'll
Yeah.
do.
That's awesome. And for yourself, obviously, you are a person as well, and you need your well-being looked after.
Hmm.
When you've got a roster of so many players that you're looking after all the time and just going, for the coaching staff, I think a lot of people forget, that they have needs and they have struggles and highs and lows. Is there anything
Hmm.
in particular that you do for yourself to kind of check within yourself, or detach, when you're away from the sport, you go,
Yeah.
I've got to switch off now. And if so, how do you go about that?
Yeah, this is something that I think we all evolve. as we mature as practitioners. Certainly as a younger practitioner, I was very, very almost hardline about being a high performer and work and work and work. Pretty obsessed with reading in the area and studying and constantly going. And I think over time, I came to realize that I was starting to hit the wall, with regards to my mental fatigue, burnout, and stuff like that. So I think you start reluctantly at first needing to step away, and developing a hobby outside of your job, because the thing is, in an 82 game schedule, and the Premier League in the UK isn't much better. You're looking at 65 to 70 games of football.
Yeah.
Right. And so with those guys, they're playing 90 minutes. With the NBA guys, they're probably playing, 20 to 30 minutes at the most. And similarly with the hockey guys. Right. So it's a tremendous load on the body, but then also on the staff.
Yeah.
Because you're in before everyone, you're out after everybody. You don't get limited to that 4 hours. So you're completely immersed in it. And if you don't do anything else, despite your best efforts, it starts becoming your identity, because you don't do anything else. It's all you do. So it's all consuming of your life. And so if you're never around different people, if you're never around, some different hobbies and exposure to something different, your brain, you start resenting it a little bit, and your brain starts burning out. So that would be number one for me, is having a hobby. For me, I started doing jiu-jitsu, and it was a good way to get away and burn some energy and do some different stuff.
A lot of people talk about, Jeremy. They say jiu-jitsu at the moment. Obviously, you hear about it a lot through podcasts or people, but even in day to day now, I speak to a lot of people that have come out of a contact sport in particular, and they need that form of tension. I don't know, release of whatever. But it's very humbling. They say, you could be one of the biggest guys in the room, but you can have the smallest guy just choke you out if you let your ego, do that. So it's interesting. You're talking about that.
Yeah, that was, part of it was sort of maintaining that mindset of being a novice all the time, because I think you learn the most. So if you can go into an environment where you are completely new to something, you really have to go in and be humble and learn. And look, I'm in really good shape. I played rugby, so I'm pretty good in contact. And these guys just destroyed me, absolutely destroyed me. Like you're about having a panic attack with some of these things that are going on. And it's so humbling, because like I say, you think you're a big, strong guy, and all of a sudden you just, you're just getting absolutely taken to town. It's quite funny. But then, the other thing I've done is, gone into working on learning on some languages, so learning Spanish, just to get your brain going. And again, just being new and really bad at something. So that's been really fun. And then more recently, I've really took a deep dive into mental health. I went through some pretty tough times during my career in terms of, depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. And so really started exploring mental and emotional health, and starting a morning routine, including, whether it be sound therapy, gratitude journaling, meditation. And this is very, very recent stuff that I wish I'd been doing for longer. But you just sort of, because you're scientists, right? And you measure stuff, and you're a high performer, and you don't think about this stuff, and you sort of think it's a bit wishy-washy, and then you get into it, and you're like, oh shit, I could have done with this about 15 years ago.
100%. That's so true, mate. I think, sometimes you've got to hit those lows to actually realize that, hey, I need help. But it's all good and well reaching out and looking for the help, but sometimes you've got to do the work yourself, as you talk about, sound therapy. With a lot of people, with what we do with the Walkers Only podcast and the community, we talk about obviously exercise is really good, but it's a consistent, that's a physical. But to work on the mental, you got to kind of sit with yourself and be still and sit with your thoughts. If that's meditation or if that's journaling, really simple things. But it's interesting, and it's really cool to hear you talk about this in being such a high performing job. and go 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 all the time. You see these pro athletes, and for you
Hmm.
to talk openly about checking in with your mental health, and end of the day, everyone has mental health, whether it's a good day or a bad day, and I've
Hmm.
definitely had my demons as well with depression, anxiety. I think
Yeah.
mine was more regarded with probably my identity, where they come to
Hmm.
playing sports, 3 knee reconstructions, ACLs on the same knee, and just didn't know who I was. Had to,
Yeah.
forced to retire. And it's regardless of what level you play in, it you don't realize the highs that sports can give you. So when
Hmm.
that gets taken away from you, you've kind of really got to find out who you are, and what other things you're interested in. Like you said, it's amazing that you're looking at jiu-jitsu, because I think regardless of if you're immersed in a sport or if it's your part-time sport, you've got to have alternative hobbies. Because if
Hmm.
you put all your eggs in one basket and that one day that thing goes, you're pretty screwed for a while until
Yeah.
you find out.
Yeah.
So it's good, man. I've never done sound therapy, but I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. This is something that I've very, very recently got into. As you start doing a little exploration, what we're finding is um, that there are vibrational frequencies that you can detect in the voice,
Mm,
and so I've really been doing a lot of research around that.
mm,
There's a number of companies right now, technology companies, putting out really, really good products into the market. There's a company called Vibonics that I
mm.
work with, that it gives you a granular look, a sort of passive collection of your emotional status.
Mm.
So it'll detect 15 to 20 different kinds of emotion that you might be experiencing and the different levels that they're at.
Wow.
And with each one having a specific frequency, it allows you to basically see almost what radio station you're tuned into in the
Mm.
morning, and then be able to gradually sort of shift it back to where you need to be, whether it's more grounding, whether it's more
Wow.
joy, love, happiness, these sorts of things. And so understanding those different frequencies allows you to intervene, with whatever it is, a certain hertz of sound. Maybe it's a playlist on Spotify,
Yeah.
but you can actually hijack that system through your audio system,
Mm.
and be able to sort of bring yourself down. So, I've combined some of that with, like I say, the gratitude journaling, which has
Mm.
a huge proven impact on stress, anxiety, mood, positive outlook,
Definitely.
all that sort of stuff. And then follow that with some meditation once you've got that
Mm.
sort of grounding in
That's
the right
amazing.
place. And yeah, it's been really powerful for me, really
That's
powerful.
awesome. And that's it,
And
right,
I
Jeff?
think
Well, sorry, go on.
no, so it's just that's sort of what it came out of, was that identity piece. I
Mm.
think that was the biggest. I've been through a couple of those, so thanks for sharing that. It's
Mm.
stop playing rugby also because of injury, and you go
Mm.
through a period where your entire social circle goes away, not
Oh,
just your outlet for something and what you do and what you're good at, but it's everything that you
yeah,
you associate with,
yeah.
right? And so then you're sort of on an island when you're out of the group.
Mm.
And then going through a career in high performance sport, and you work at it for so long that again it becomes your identity,
100%.
regardless of whether you want it to or not. You think you're doing everything you need to for it not to,
Mm.
and then once it gets once something happens and maybe that gets ripped away, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
It's all these things that you've tied yourself to, suddenly you start realizing they don't mean
100%.
everything you thought they would mean, and then it's time to start that self-discovery process and understand yourself a lot more, and what you need in your own life. So
It's so
yeah,
true.
it's an interesting process.
Definitely, man. And I really appreciate you, just sharing a bit of that, because it does, in today at the moment, we need more people to speak up and be like, hey, I'm not doing well at the moment. And like you say,
Yeah.
it's not as such the sport, it's like you said, it's the things that come with it, it's the socials, it's the messaging and the group chats,
Yeah.
and the whole thing. I suppose you see a lot of people in the army go for it. When they leave the army, they
Yeah.
lose this whole identity, because it's this brotherhood, as they say.
Hmm.
And it's not nothing against the people that are in the sport. It's just you're still in the circle, so you've kind of got to
Yeah.
keep going with it. But when you're out of the circle, it's like when you're in the rehab group, when you're injured in a sports team,
Yeah.
you're out of that circle, and it gets kind of lonely
Yeah.
training on your own, doing
Yeah, it
6 months
does.
of rehab. And so like you said, it's finding other parts of you. But to be honest, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me was that, because it was like you talk about discovering who I actually am, what
Yeah,
other interests I have outside of this sport, because I am so more than rugby or
right.
NBA or NHL. You know, we're so much more as beings.
Yeah.
So when you really tap into that, you can get fulfillment in other things in life.
Yeah, there's so much to life, and that's sort of my journey right now is creating as much richness in my own experience as I
Mm.
can, and that's the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that I've sort of been relied upon in my career and in my family life as well is emotional stability.
Mm.
But what that is more constraint,
Mm.
right? So you're just constantly hyper regulating, right?
Yes.
There's nothing up or down. You're just steady,
Mm.
which makes you very good, and it serves you very well in a high pressure environment because you don't have things impact you much.
Definitely.
But conversely, when really good things happen, you don't celebrate,
Mm.
and so you don't get any of that joy. We're in sport to win and to enjoy the highs that come with it, but you
Yeah.
don't,
Mm.
because you're on to the next thing. In sport, there's always something new. So, okay, well, great, we did that. What's next?
Mm.
Right? There's something else to fix. And so I think what I'm working on and what I believe everyone should be working on is how do we experience that in the moment, experience that joy,
Mm.
celebrate, and that's everyone from management to coaches, telling people they did a great job,
Yeah.
celebrating as a group, not just taking it for granted that those people who are there supporting the team just happy to be there, happy to do it. I think
Yeah.
it's really important that we give positive feedback and let
100%.
people know they're doing a great job so that they can enjoy in the success that we have.
So true, Jeremy, because it's interesting you say that. So it's I don't know if it's in our DNA as the young people coming through sports, but we're always trying to chase that perfect game or that perfect,
Hmm.
result. But reality, perfect, you can't get perfect. So you're always like you might have 99% of great in one game and a couple of errors or a couple of mishits or offsets, and you're dwelling on those more than actually
Hmm.
all the positives. And you could be winning a game or winning results in any aspect, but you're still dwelling on those mistakes. And it's interesting to say that I went back and played a couple of games this year with my brother, just a semi-pro level, and we won a game one day the other week. And after the game, the coaches were like, boys, good win, but this wasn't good enough. This wasn't good. And I was like,
Right.
hang on. And as I am now, I'm older. And I don't. If you want to drop me, you can drop me. I don't care at the moment. So I was like,
Yeah.
I've got nothing to lose anymore, Jez. So I was like, hey boys,
Yeah.
just letting you know we won today, and there were so many positives out of there. And I've made it like compulsory to me. After every game, I'll go around to like anyone who comes in my line. I'll be like, hey mate, you played really well today. Like
Yeah.
that thing you did or this you did, and it's just reigniting that in them. Hey, you like it, giving someone some positive feedback doesn't actually fulfill them, it fulfills me as well. Like it's
Hmm.
like a mirror image hits me, and it's like gratitude, empathy, it
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
combines. So like you said, in a big ego sport, if we can combine the two, man,
Yeah.
results will double, you know what I mean? But we just got to tap
Yeah.
into that place. And obviously probably with yourself, Jeremy, ego is such a killer, but you're in a high performance sport, and I'd say you
Yeah.
come across a lot of egos every day in that. How do you manage that stuff?
Yeah, look, I think it's important to acknowledge that we all have an ego. We wouldn't be here
Mm.
if we didn't at
Mm.
this high level. We were all driven to achieve, and we were driven to overcome and be the best at what we do. And so ego plays a huge part in
Mm.
anybody achieving this level of success. Um, the trick is not to let it get
Mm.
in the way. It can't be a negative influence where you start thinking that you've done more or you're better than somebody, or
Yeah.
you can treat people who aren't at your level,
Mm.
any worse than anyone else. So, I think there's the positive and the negative to the ego, and I think to say, oh, we don't have ego here,
Oh, we
it's
do.
sort of disingenuous. You know what I mean? So, um, number one is treating people well.
Mm.
For me, I think that you set the example as a leader.
Mm.
You set the tone.
Yeah.
And so how you treat people in the building, how you treat people in the street, in the supermarket, that for me is as important as how you're treating your top players.
100%.
Um, and so setting example for players, and because they're often quite young and they've
Mm,
had obviously a lot of success from a very young age. So I think setting that example in how they need to treat people, especially that they get to a station in life where it matters how they treat people,
mm,
and it's easy for them to not treat people well,
yeah.
um, because that's how they've been brought up, maybe,
Yeah.
at least in sport, not necessarily by their parents.
Mm,
So I think that's number one. And then I think when you do come across people who appear to have a bigger ego, I think you've got to sort of get to the root of that.
mm,
Often in pro athletes are often some of the most insecure people because they're scrutinized every turn.
yeah.
And so a lot of that standoffishness, a lot of that bravado is sort of to make up for it's almost an act like it doesn't bother them,
Mm,
right? And so it's a defense mechanism often. And so I think the more one-on-one interaction you can have with that player
yeah.
or that coach or that practitioner, the more you start to cut through that ego,
Mm,
the more they'll be a little more vulnerable around you, and
yeah.
maybe start to buy in and believe.
Mm,
But it's got to be about that individual,
yeah.
and as we alluded to earlier, I think we're not limited by our knowledge
Mm,
as practitioners in pro sport. We're limited by our ability to apply our knowledge,
yeah.
and that's where it comes to. It's not, oh, this guy's got a massive ego, he doesn't listen to me. That's your own ego.
Yeah, that's right.
If your job is to be a teacher
Mm,
and to apply your knowledge, and so if somebody's difficult, it's your job to find a way to
yeah.
get them to do what you need them to do,
Yeah.
right? And that's, if you want to be seen as an elite practitioner, it's not just having the tracksuit and the job in
Mm,
pro sport and getting on Twitter and LinkedIn and
yeah,
telling
yeah.
everyone how smart you are. It's about getting your athletes to change their behavior
That's right.
at the end of the day, and if you're a leader in sports, about getting some of your staff to change their behavior.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so that's it for me. It is about the individual. It's not,
Mm,
people generally aren't bad,
yeah.
right? They're not a bunch of egotistical assholes. I think you've just got to get to know them and
Yeah.
find out maybe why they're acting like that, and maybe they're just really insecure,
That's a,
and
mm.
just need a hug or something. I don't know.
Yeah, mate, definitely hugs. I think that's the key. A lot of people, they just need a little bit of love in their life.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. What I was going to say was, on top of that, mate, do you yourself, obviously, like with the being such a go-getter yourself, did you ever sit with yourself, sorry, and go, geez, I've achieved some things right now. Like I've just, last year you said you won the MLS Cup. Is that right? And
Mm,
before
yeah.
that, you've been involved with some of the top teams. How, you guy from Leicester, no disrespect to Leicester, but like you've gone over to the States, you've done all these things, like that is some amazing things, mate. Do you ever sit with yourself and go, geez, you
Yeah.
know, that's not the ego, that's just a moment of patting yourself on the back, because we can forget to do
Yeah, no.
that.
Frankly, that again, that comes back to that pro sport sort of
Mm,
mentality. It's and something that I'm actively trying to change.
yeah.
The answer isn't no in a way that I'm proud of.
Mm,
Um, I think it's something I'd love to take more joy out of the stuff that I've achieved, and it's been so much fun, and I've now amassed a set of experiences
mm,
that people can't pay for.
yeah.
I've done some of the most amazing things that anyone will ever get to do,
Yeah.
especially growing up as a sports mad youngster in Leicester.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe if you
Mm,
told that kid that this is what you're going to do. And so now it's a case of reflecting on that and taking some joy out of it, and being able to pass some of this experience that I've had
mm,
onto a new generation who are coming through sport, and hopefully they can not make some of the mistakes that I made, in terms of their own personal growth and personal
yeah.
development.
Yeah, that's true. I think at the same time, you've got to hit some roadblocks in life to learn. Otherwise, if it's going, this,
Yeah,
you gotta appreciate the highs with the lows, as they say.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
about you, Jeremy. Obviously, you're from Leicester. Were you a big fan of Leicester Tigers?
Oh, huge fan. Yeah,
Oh,
huge
mate,
fan.
growing up,
Yeah,
this is back when, Martin Johnson was in, Neil Back.
yeah,
Those days, you
yeah,
had the Lewis Moody's. I used to
yeah,
love watching Leicester Tiger, that big pack they had. I know that's off the topic a bit, but
yeah,
big rugby union fan growing up, and the two
yeah,
Lange brothers when they were all there is unbelievable.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that was the era I grew up in around Leicester, and so I grew up with some of those guys and playing against them.
mm,
I think one of the best parts of my rugby career was I played for Leeds at under 21s and
yeah,
got to play against Leicester, and so that was
that's
a surreal
amazing.
moment, and it was
Yeah,
a lot of those young guys who had just broken into the first team,
mm,
Harry Ellis and your Lewis Deacons and those
yeah,
guys playing, and it
Martin
was
Corrie.
it was a lot of fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
all those guys, it was a lot
that,
of fun.
small world. There you go. Well, you were at Leeds. What was the name of them called back then? Leeds Tykes.
Tykes, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they've changed the name, I think now. But I was actually
yeah.
in
Yorkshire
the
Carnegie now.
yeah, yeah. But I was actually at the Leeds Rhinos, which was in the
Oh, no
same
way.
facility. Yeah, so there you go. Small world. This
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah, I lived there for about two and a half years in Headingley.
Yeah, brilliant. That's right where
Yeah,
I lived at in university. Yeah.
yeah. It's a good place. I like Leeds.
Yeah, yeah, what a spot.
It is, mate. Well, look, it's been an honor having you on, you mate, and I feel like I could talk forever with you. To be honest, not even about sports or science or anything. Just
I
have a good
know, I
chat with
know.
you, mate. But that's what it's all about on this
Yeah, yeah.
podcast. Um, last thing, actually, man. I always like to ask my guests is, what are you grateful for?
You know what I actually just did a gratitude journal this morning as we spoke about.
Yeah.
Number one is my wife.
Mm,
She's followed me around the country for the last 15 plus years so that I can pursue this career, and has supported me, and just everything that isn't my job, she's done.
mm.
Hasn't made a friend in 15 years because I've moved her every couple of years, right? So now we're going to settle down in one spot. So it's giving
Mm,
back to her, and then it's just it's all about the people who
mm.
have believed in you and continue to believe in you, and they're the ones that have afforded you the opportunities that you've had in life, and you always got to be grateful to those people and extend those same opportunities to other people as they come along.
That's amazing, man. I love that. If I've got to ask one more thing because I it's been on my mind is, so what is the next step for you? Obviously, you've talked about you've jumped out of the sports teams, and what is it? What is
Yeah,
next?
yeah. So founding a data science company now.
Mm,
It's called North Star. We're basically looking to solve one of the big problems in sport, and that's the injury
mm,
problems. The man games lost within any sport continue to go up, even as the staffs grow and we get more data.
mm,
So throughout my career, we've had the ability to collect more data.
mm,
Um, AMS systems came along, able to, store it, make a graph, do some basic computations.
mm,
So what we're looking to do is take it to that next level now and add a AI and machine learning engine to basically anywhere there's data,
mm,
so that we can start really looking at some of those complex interactions of the different variables we're measuring with athletes,
mm.
and give a heads up to the practitioners at an earlier point, pick up some signals that could be leading to injury, allow them to intervene earlier to prevent the injury, but then also to boost performance. So we can
Wow.
use that same methodology of, here's a timestamp of when you hit your maximum velocity, or here's when you hit your best KPIs in game. And what did we do that week? What were the confluence of events, and what were the signals we can detect to repeat and boost your performance going forward?
That's amazing. And then how good is science? I know that sounds crazy, but like science keeps on evolving, though, right?
Yeah,
It's never like we're done here now. It's just
yeah.
keeps on going.
No, and that's exactly how we see it. It's the whole premise of what we're doing is, we're really just looking to evolve beyond all these necessary steps that have come before us.
Mm,
Now we're ready for this next step. We have enough data in sport that we can create some real insight and some prescriptive protocols around how to prevent these injuries.
mm.
Um, and it's there to support practitioners. because the people again are the ones that are going to actually act on this stuff. But we need better insights. It's something I never had in my career that I've been sort of crying out for is just deeper insight into the data and how different factors affect one another.
That's awesome. Well, man, what a credit to you. And I'm super grateful for Tim to get me in touch with you. So you're an absolute legend, mate, and I could talk with you for ages. So thank you
Yeah,
so much for this.
no worries. Thanks. I really enjoyed the chat, Ollie.
No worries.